You're not just living, you're surviving a war. But not the kind with bullets or banners. This one has no front lines, no sirens, no uniforms. It's a silent war, fought in your mind, beneath your skin, behind every choice you make. And the most brutal part? You didn't even know you'd been drafted. This isn't about your job, your goals, your bank account, or your followers. No. The real war is between who you pretend to be and who you truly are. You think you're choosing freely, but most of your moves are reactions, reflexes, echoes of a story you didn't write, a strategy you never designed. You wake up every morning like you're in control, but you're moving through life like a soldier who's never seen the map, only orders. And here's what you forgot. In this war, you're not just the fighter. You're the fortress, the weapon, the ground itself. If you fall, the war doesn't continue. It ends. The world keeps telling you to move forward, push harder, keep grinding. But no one asks if you even know where you're going. And that is the first way we lose. Not in battle, but in confusion. Because direction is everything. You think you're strong because you're busy. You think you're focused because you're exhausted. But you're not fighting a war. You're flailing in the dark. And here's the truth no one dares whisper. The enemy isn't out there. It's not your boss, your past, your ex, or your failures. It's inside. It wears your face. It speaks in your voice. It tells you to be quiet when you should speak, to run when you should stand firm, to tolerate what breaks you, because that's life. No, that's not life. That's surrender. But how do you fight back against something that lives in your mind? You don't pick up a sword. You sharpen your vision. You cultivate clarity. Because clarity is the most underrated form of power. And right now, you're fighting blind. You scroll for validation. You speak to impress. You grind to prove. But do you even know what you're trying to prove and to who? You don't need to do more. You need to see more. The battlefield is cluttered with distractions, noise disguised as opportunity, applause dressed as meaning. But not everything that looks like progress is peace. Let me tell you something the world will never teach you. Stillness can be stronger than movement. Silence can be louder than noise. And presence, true, grounded presence, is more commanding than any performance. But you keep choosing movement over meaning, reaction over reflection. You've mistaken being busy for being alive. Stop. Ask yourself right now, what am I really defending? Don't say your job, your image, your status. That's sand. That's fog. What really matters is what's inside. Your peace, your truth, your boundaries, your soul. That's the terrain. And if you lose that, you've lost everything. You see, real strength isn't about what you conquer. It's about what you refuse to abandon. Your principles, your center. The voice inside you that says, this matters, and I won't give it up, not for success, not for comfort, not for applause. But you've silenced that voice for too long, buried it under deadlines, people-pleasing, fear, and noise. You've let the world negotiate your value. And now, you don't even remember what it felt like to stand still in your own truth. But here's the thing. Peace isn't passive. It's active. It's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice. Most people build walls to keep others out, but the wise build castles within to protect what matters most, not to isolate, but to anchor. Let me ask you something you've never dared to ask yourself. What if everything you've chased was just a distraction from the work you were afraid to do? The work of self-mastery, because that's the real war, isn't it? Not winning, but holding your ground. Not dominating others, but defending yourself from yourself. Most people walk into life like it's a race, but the ones who survive with their soul intact walk like it's a field of landmines. Careful, present, intentional. You don't need to move faster. You need to move wiser. And to do that, You need to know yourself, not in the surface way, not in a my favorite color is blue kind of way. I mean truly, deeply, uncomfortably. You need to know your wounds, your blind spots, your addictions to chaos and comfort. You need to sit with your shadows, name them, befriend them, integrate them. Because if you don't, they'll run your life from the backseat. They'll hijack your decisions, whisper fears in your ear, trade your peace for attention, and you'll call it ambition. But it's not. It's avoidance, and it's expensive. You've paid for it in sleepless nights, relationships that drained you, jobs that suffocated you, choices that made you feel fake. You've sold parts of your soul for approval, and it still didn't fill the void, because no one can give you what you haven't claimed for yourself. And that's why clarity is so threatening. Because once you have it, you can't be controlled. They can't manipulate you with fear, can't seduce you with status, can't pressure you with urgency. You move on your terms, not theirs. And that, my friend, is rare. Most people aren't alive. They're just animated, controlled by algorithms, social conditioning, and the fear of not being enough. But you're waking up, and now you get to choose. Do I keep playing a game I never designed, or do I rewrite the rules? Because here's the truth. You can't control the battlefield, but you can choose your position. You can't silence every critic, but you can choose who gets access to your mind. You can't win every fight, but you can walk away from wars that cost your peace. And that, right there, is wisdom. The people who look invincible aren't the ones who fight the most. They're the ones who protect their peace the best. Because real power doesn't shout. It radiates. It's not in how many moves you make. It's in how many mistakes you avoid. Not through fear, but through understanding. Through clarity. Through self-awareness. And that kind of wisdom isn't loud. It's not sexy. It doesn't get applause. But it builds an unshakable core. You see, when you have an unshakable core, you don't need to chase anything. You attract. Not people, not money, not fame, but clarity. And clarity brings everything else into alignment. You no longer beg for direction. You become direction. But here's what most won't tell you. Clarity comes at a cost. A cost most aren't willing to pay. Because clarity demands solitude. It asks you to sit with yourself without the mask, without the noise, without the need to be impressive. It forces you to face the parts of yourself you've hidden, even from your own reflection. And that's terrifying. Because there's no filter for truth, no shortcut through the mirror. You either look or you keep running. And the longer you run, the more lost you feel. So, if you're tired of the pretending, the pleasing, the endless pursuit that leaves you empty, then good. That tiredness is not weakness. It's awakening. It's the first sign you're ready to stop surviving and start living. But be warned, the world doesn't reward clarity. It rewards conformity. You'll be praised for staying quiet, applauded for fitting in, promoted for playing along. But the moment you walk away from the script, people get uncomfortable. Because your freedom reminds them of their cage. Don't let that scare you. Let it free you. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be true. And truth doesn't always smile. Sometimes, truth walks alone, eats alone, works in silence, while the world dances in distraction. But while others lose themselves in applause, you'll gain something they can't even name. Peace. That rare, sacred kind of peace that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. The kind of peace that anchors you when everything else falls apart. Because things will fall apart. That's not a threat, it's a promise. Plans will break. People will change. The ground beneath you will shake. But your peace, that must remain. Because if your peace depends on circumstances, it was never yours to begin with. So let me ask you again. What are you really defending? Not the version of you others expect. Not the mask. not the numbers or the noise. I'm talking about the real you, the one who doesn't need approval to breathe, who doesn't need an audience to feel valuable. Are you protecting that version? Or have you abandoned it in favor of something more acceptable? If you have, it's okay. You're not weak. You're just human. We've all done it. We've all dimmed our light to fit into places too small for our soul. We've all silenced our truth for temporary comfort. But the time for silence is over. The time for clarity has come. Clarity isn't perfection, it's permission. Permission to choose differently, to speak without apology, to live without pretending. It doesn't mean you'll never fall. It means when you do, you'll know how to rise. Because now, you're not just reacting, you're responding. And response, that conscious, deliberate act, is power. It's the difference between noise and music, between chaos and rhythm, between a life that's happening to you and one that's unfolding through you. So stop asking for a map. Start becoming the compass, because there will be moments when the path vanishes, when no one has answers, when even the stars go quiet. In those moments, it's not strategy that will save you. It's identity. It's knowing who you are so deeply, so honestly, that even in darkness, you can move forward with conviction. Let the world doubt. Let the critics circle. Let the noise rise. But you stay rooted. That's clarity. That's leadership. That's the warrior path most never take, because it requires the kind of strength that doesn't come from muscle or mind, but from soul. Let me tell you something sacred. When you know who you are, you no longer fear losing what you're not. And that's the birthplace of freedom. Not the kind in motivational posters, not the kind in social media quotes, the real kind. The kind where you look in the mirror and don't flinch, where you walk into a room and don't shrink, where you say no and don't explain, where your silence is full of meaning and your presence speaks before your mouth ever does. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how powerful that makes you? In a world starving for validation, the one who doesn't need it becomes untouchable. Because you can't seduce someone who isn't hungry. You can't control someone who's already claimed their freedom. You can't scare someone who's made peace with fear. And here's the twist. When you finally stop trying to prove yourself, you start becoming yourself. People won't understand it at first. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, different. They're right. You have changed. You're no longer available for the games, the drama, the false urgency. You've traded the spotlight for substance, the chase for peace. You're no longer looking for your place in the world. You're creating it. And as you create your place, you start to see the truth with new eyes. You realize most people are not living. They're performing, playing roles they never auditioned for in scripts they never questioned. Their smiles are rehearsed, their confidence borrowed, their certainty paper thin. But you've stepped off the stage. You've chosen something rarer than success. You've chosen authenticity. And that choice, that single defiant act, makes you dangerous in a world built on illusion. Because once you become real, you become immune to the game, no longer triggered by silence, no longer addicted to noise, no longer obsessed with winning battles that don't feed your soul. You begin to see that not every mountain is yours to climb. Not every invitation deserves a reply. Not every opportunity is aligned with your purpose. You don't need more, you need right. And the only way to know what's right is through stillness, through awareness, through self-honesty so raw, it burns away everything false. But here's where many get stuck. They confuse self-awareness with self-criticism. They think knowing themselves means finding flaws to fix. But the truth is, knowing yourself isn't about repair. It's about recognition. You're not a project. You're a presence. And the deeper you see yourself, the less you need to explain, prove, or defend. You just are. That's what scares people. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch at judgment, who doesn't chase applause, who doesn't beg to be understood. So they label you cold, arrogant, distant. Let them. Because you no longer live through their lens. You live through your alignment. And alignment doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It moves with quiet confidence because it knows. It knows when to walk away, when to speak up, when to rest, when to fight, when to say, "This doesn't serve me," and leave without guilt. That level of clarity is not gifted. It's forged in solitude, in shadow work, in the fires of unlearning. Unlearning the lies they taught you, that your worth is in your productivity. That love must be earned. That vulnerability is weakness. That success means sacrifice at all costs. Number. You unlearn all that, and in the ashes, you find yourself. Not the version others celebrated, the one you recognize, the one who never needed fixing, only remembering. And when you remember, truly remember, who you are, something shifts. Your posture changes. Your pace slows. Your words carry weight. Your boundaries become sacred. You no longer move for attention. You move with intention. And that, more than anything else, changes the entire battlefield. Because now, the war isn't about winning. It's about protecting. Not protecting ego, but protecting peace. Your internal alignment, your emotional sovereignty. You stop reacting to every attack because you realize some battles are invitations to self-betrayal, and you're no longer available for betrayal, not even your own. This is maturity. This is growth. To recognize that not every loss is defeat, and not every win is progress. To know that rest isn't laziness, silence isn't weakness, distance isn't coldness. It's preservation. It's self-respect. It's the understanding that your energy is finite and your peace is priceless. So let them wonder why you're quiet now, why you don't argue, why you don't chase. Let them misunderstand your distance. Let them gossip about your absence. You're not where you used to be, and that's the point. You've outgrown the battlefield of noise. You're learning the art of inner warfare, of choosing which wars are worth fighting and which are traps dressed as duty. And you know what one of the hardest battles is? The battle of letting go. Letting go of being liked. Letting go of outdated versions of yourself. Letting go of proving, pleasing, performing. That's the moment you realize true freedom isn't found in achievement. It's found in release. When you release what no longer aligns, you make room for what does. And suddenly, you're not just surviving the war, you're rewriting it. You're no longer the soldier on the field. You're the strategist above it. Calm, focused, intentional. You're not asking, how do I win this fight? You're asking, is this fight even mine? Because not every tension deserves your attention. Not every opinion needs a reaction. Not every invitation is an opportunity. Some are traps. Some are echoes. Some are distractions wrapped in urgency. So you pause. You breathe. You return to your clarity. That's where your real power lives. Not in speed, in discernment. The ability to say no when it's tempting. To walk away when it's easier to stay. To protect your peace when chaos is selling excitement. The world will tell you, hustle more, fight harder, prove yourself. But clarity whispers a different truth. You don't need to fight for what's already yours. You just need to claim it. With calm, with certainty, with rootedness so deep that no storm can shake it. So what exactly is already yours? That's the question clarity helps you answer. It's not everything you've been told to chase. It's not the dreams they sold you wrapped in someone else's definition of success. What's yours is simple. Your mind, your energy, your breath, your choices, your voice. But here's the twist. Most people abandon what's theirs chasing what never was. They give away their time to obligations they hate, their loyalty to people who drain them, their self-worth to strangers behind screens. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they feel hollow. It's because they've built their lives around what's expected, not what's essential. And that's where the collapse begins. Quiet at first, subtle. You start to feel off. You get irritated, disconnected, like you're watching your life instead of living it. That's not laziness. That's not depression. That's your soul trying to get your attention. That's your inner compass whispering, "We've strayed too far." The problem isn't your ambition. It's your alignment. You're climbing a ladder, but is it leaning against the right wall? You work hard, but is the life you're building one you even want to live? This is why clarity matters, because without it, effort becomes exhaustion, hustle becomes hiding, and success becomes a shiny cage. And here's the irony. The world will cheer for your cage, as long as it looks good, as long as you smile and produce and play the part. But you'll know. You'll know it's not freedom. You'll know the applause doesn't touch the ache. Because real fulfillment doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being known by yourself. So let's bring it back. Let's get honest. When was the last time you asked yourself, without judgment or noise, what do I want to protect? What part of me have I silenced just to fit in? What truth have I postponed because I was scared of what it would break? You don't need more answers. You need deeper questions. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be found by your own awareness. This is the foundation of clarity. It doesn't come in a flash. It comes in layers, in peeling back who you're not to remember who you are. And it's not always graceful. It's not always peaceful. Sometimes clarity arrives like fire, burning away the false so the real can rise. But once you see, you can't unsee. You'll begin to notice where you've settled, where you've betrayed yourself for convenience, where you've worn masks so long they started to feel like skin. And you'll begin to shed, not because you hate yourself, but because you love yourself enough to come home. And as you come home, you realize everything you were searching for in the world, belonging, validation, peace, it was all waiting in your own presence. You were never meant to fight every battle. You were meant to discern what's worth your soul. And most of what we call important is actually noise in disguise. So slow down, not because you're falling behind, but because you're done rushing towards someone else's finish line. You're not here to outperform. You're here to remember what matters, to remember what's yours, to remember how to be still in a world that worships movement. Because stillness is a superpower. Stillness gives you perspective. Stillness sharpens your aim. Stillness reconnects you to the signal within, the one you've been ignoring beneath the static of shoulds and have-tos. And when you move again, you'll move with meaning. Because now, it's not about speed, it's about depth. It's not about performance, it's about presence. You've become the kind of person who doesn't need to be loud to be heard, who doesn't need to be seen to feel valid, who doesn't need the spotlight to walk in light. And here's what's wild. The moment you no longer need it all, that's when it starts to come. Because you're no longer attracting from fear. You're radiating from truth. People feel it. Your energy shifts. Your standards rise. Your time becomes sacred. And what doesn't align, it falls away. Not in anger, not in drama, just naturally, quietly. Because anything not rooted in truth cannot survive where you're going. You are now your own guide. You don't fear the unknown. You trust the known within. That is the rarest kind of power. The kind that doesn't seek to control others, but to master the self. And in doing that, you change everything. So here you are. Not at the end of something, but at the beginning of becoming. You're not who you were when this started. something's shifted. You've seen behind the curtain. You've recognized the game. And most importantly, you've remembered something powerful. You were never here to play by their rules. You were here to create your own. To build a life not made of borrowed beliefs and scripted expectations, but of conscious choices and sacred non-negotiables. To walk with purpose, not pressure. To act from clarity, not compulsion. To speak from truth, not tension. Because once you know yourself, once you protect the core and prioritize the essential, the rest becomes manageable. Life doesn't become easier, but you become stronger, more stable, more centered. And that center? It's what carries you through the chaos. Because the storms will still come, the critics will still speak, the world will still spin. But you don't. You pause, you discern, you respond, not from fear, not from habit, but from alignment. And in doing so, you transform from participant to creator, from reactor to architect, from pawn to sovereign. That's not ego. That's evolution. You've stopped outsourcing your worth. You've stopped waiting to be chosen. You've stopped running after what costs your peace. You've remembered that your life is yours. Your attention is yours. Your voice is yours. Your truth is yours. And you've made a vow, maybe silently, maybe trembling, maybe uncertain, but a vow nonetheless. I will no longer abandon myself. That sentence alone changes everything, because from that point forward, every choice becomes a declaration. Every boundary becomes an affirmation. Every breath becomes sacred, and the world will notice. They'll feel your presence shift. They'll sense your inner fortress. They'll respect your silence, even if they don't understand it. You will intimidate some, inspire others, confuse many. Let them react how they will. Because clarity isn't for decoration, it's for direction. And you've chosen yours. You've chosen depth over drama, presence over performance, peace over approval. That choice is rare, it's radical, it's revolutionary, but it's not complicated. It's just honest. And honesty, real honesty, is the beginning of all healing, all freedom, all sovereignty. So now you return to the world, but differently. You move slower, but more decisively. You speak less, but with more weight. You want less, but value more. And you carry something most don't even realize they've lost: yourself. No longer fragmented, no longer diluted, no longer hidden beneath layers of performance. You are whole, not perfect, not finished, but real. And real is rare. So protect it. Protect it not with arrogance, but with awareness. Not with aggression, but with boundaries. Not with fear, but with wisdom. And let this be the final truth you carry forward. The most dangerous person is not the loudest, not the strongest, not the richest. It's the one who knows exactly who they are and refuses to forget it. That is the one who cannot be bought, cannot be broken, cannot be bent by trends or timelines. That is the one who moves through the world with quiet power. And that one is now you. You've remembered the truth, that in a world obsessed with noise, the most powerful act is to protect your inner silence. And in a world full of movement, the greatest strategy is to stand still until you're certain. Because at the end of it all, real victory was never about conquering others. It was about never abandoning yourself.